stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Ms. Lockhfelter, Ms. Nyworth.
Here.
Ms. Edwards.
Here.
Dr. Bridges.
Here.
Mr. Jester.
Here.
Colonel King.
Okay, item number 4 is special guests and special recognitions.
Okay, we have actually 3 different special guests and recognitions. We will start with the agenda, and I will pass this off to, we have the Kiwanis Club here, and I'll ask you to approach I don't know who the spokesperson is. But, okay, there you go, smart man. But you can speak in the microphone if you want, behind the podium. Whatever you do, don't touch the microphone, though. I'm telling them. Yes.
Hi, my name is Tamara Horschler. I'm secretary of Lawton Kiwanis Club. We have Dee Dee Arms with us, the interim treasurer, and the president, Emmett Taylor. And we would like to present to the Lawton Public Schools $7,350 to be used by all of our elementary schools for alternative seating and library books.
Fabulous.
I did ask Superintendent Deaton if we'd spelled his name
Thank you for thinking of us.
You're welcome. And Claire, do we do it the real check?
Oh,
the real check.
Denise in the red, or Kathy, right there, either one.
and maybe we can excuse.
Yes, you're welcome to stay. You drew a crowd, so I'm just saying. But thank you all.
Thank you
Thank you
so
very,
much.
very much. Appreciate it.
Pretty hard to top that one.
Yeah.
Well, Colonel King, I'm glad you came in. We're going to we'll need you on the next one. On item B, each year, Fort Sill identifies educators with its Excellence in Education nominees. And here to recognize all 3 of them this year from LPS, here to recognize them is Angelica and our military liaison and Colonel King. I'll just hand it off to you.
I do appreciate it. This is my first time up speaking before you guys, so it's always an honor and a pleasure to be here, and even more important to have the opportunity to announce the winners of this year's event. So what I'd like to do is, as you know, that there were 3 categories of administrators, educators, and staff. I guess there were a total of 7 that were nominated, and what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to announce the 3. So as I call your name up, please come forward, because I'd like to get an opportunity to meet you, shake your hand, and get some good pictures. So the first person that we have for the outstanding administrator is, drum roll, Miss Barbara Ellis.
Hey.
Thank you. Barbara, I see you way too much and too often at this point. But what I'd like to do is congratulations and thank you very much for all that you do for the community.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Lawton
All
Schools.
right.
Thank you. Oh, wait a second. We've got to get a picture with that. That's,
And more.
oh, yes. Okay, hold on. You get on the other side, because you're my rep on this one. Oh, we got to have that. That's the award right there. Once again,
Right.
thank you very much. Okay, and one of my favorites, because all my teachers said, you know, you're going to have challenges growing up, and we'll see where you land. If it wasn't for the teachers that had a little bit of a positive, influence on my life, I probably wouldn't be here today. So, for the Outstanding Educator of the Year, drum roll, that will be Miss Laura Hatch.
Hey.
Are you still behind? And what we'll do is I'll hand this to you with one hand, I'll shake with the other, and I'll hold, and and I'll stand next to you.
Awesome.
And thank you very much. And last but not least, the outstanding sport personnel member is, drum roll, Mr. James Clemens. Get this. My fingers don't work like they used to. Give you that.
Okay.
Stand here.
Yeah.
Let me get on my toes. Thank you very much.
All right.
Congratulations. Let me see. And what I've got is I've got some other nominees that I just wanted to thank and recognize for their service also. So I've got two individuals. If I could bring Miss Lori Barnes up. I'm just glad you're not as tall as the gentleman that I just shook hands with. Congratulations. Come on here so we can get a picture of you. Thank you very much, ma'am. Once again, thank you. And the next person that I'd like to do a recognition above and beyond service is Miss Sarah Breeze. I knew I was holding that door open for a reason. Thank you
All
very
right.
much. Well, board members, Dr. Deegan, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Nice job.
And
Okay.
now, we have one more.
Oh, we have one more.
Yes, Ms. Cordes has invited our, each board meeting, we like to recognize a student, and Eisenhower Middle School art teacher, Sandra Berry, is here to introduce a student and her work, and so I invite you both up to the podium.
I am Sandra Berry from Eisenhower Middle School. This is Charisma Dixon. She is one of my eighth graders. There's like 60-something of them. And we entered a contest this year. It all started off in September. I got a flyer from the Environmental Excellence group that is Keep Oklahoma Beautiful and the Department of Transportation. And they had an upcycle challenge for 7th and 8th graders, and I thought it would really be unfair if I included my 7th graders, so I chose my 8th graders to do this. All of my classes actually did the upcycle challenge because we all made this and made the presentation, but I'm going to let Charisma demonstrate how we made our art out of trash. The upcycle challenge was to take trash and then make art out of it. And we used our inspiration from Dale Chihuly, who has the art at the Oklahoma City Art Museum. And what we did is we took water bottles, we collected water bottles, had the students bring water bottles, we counted our water bottles, and what she's doing is cutting up the side of it in a spiral. If any of you have seen Dale Chihuly, it's all little twizzles and things like that. And then we colored those with permanent marker. It was pretty simple, but it made an impressive addition to our classroom. We took pictures. The students had to write an essay. We researched how many bottles we were going to use, how much it went into how much since all those we were gonna use, that would be separated from the landfill, our local landfill. How long our plastic water bottles stay in our environment, that's 450 years it takes for them to decompose. And so my students, while we did this, that was their, the aim was for them to realize what trash does in our environment. And so we recycled these. And that was in September. And then in October, we had to submit our pictures. In November, we were invited as the 3 finalists for the state to a real fancy award ceremony in Edmond. I took 2 of my students there. We drew them out of a hat, and 2 got to go with me. So that was exciting for them because it was super fancy. Because of this award, we got to have a pizza party put on by the Oklahoma Department of Transportation. They brought 20 pizzas in, and all my students got to eat a good little snack before they were sent home for the weekend. It was yummy. And on the 22nd, we are invited to the Oklahoma City Thunder game. That's part of our prize. And then afterwards, we get to meet Stephen Adams. So my whole goal for this was to give my students an experience they would never forget, and I hope that's what I've done. Anyway, this is our award that we got. I'm sorry that it doesn't say Eisenhower Middle School, but it says Sandra Berry's art class. And, and this is what they turned out to look like. So it was over, and we're still adding to our display, so it's something that's going to be ongoing. And I have had several teachers, not just art teachers, but teachers come by and ask how we did that, and they're doing some in their room too. So it's been a fun thing, and we've gotten lots of mileage out of this project, and we're going to go see the Oklahoma City Thunder play.
All right.
And thank you all. For all of our guests, if you want to stay for the board meeting, you're more than welcome. But of course, if you have things to do, we understand. So if you need to step out, this will be a good time. But thank you all again.
Thank you all.
Congratulations. I think those are all congratulations, weren't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was great.
I lost my agenda. There it is.
Okay. We will move to item number 5, departmental reports.
Okay, under departmental reports, we have items A and B, which are, or item A, which is the written reports to the board members. And so if the board members don't have any questions over that, I will move to item B.
Okay.
Under item B, we have a update from Ms. Kelly Trinidad about the cohort graduation rate data.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me be here and share a little bit of fabulous news here with the board. The handout that I'm going to be working out of is this particular handout. It's blank on one side. I know you got a 2-sided one. We're not dealing with a 2-sided one. We're taking a look at the one that says graduation cohort increases across the top. And just briefly to cover with you the difference between graduation rate and cohort graduation rate. This is a new way that the state is measuring how well we're graduating kids, and no longer is it enough just to identify how many in your graduating class, your senior class, started the school year and finished. No, the state wants us to look all the way back to that freshman year. So, of course, naturally in a town with high mobility, having the military here and the socioeconomic challenges that we've got, we had some challenges in trying to identify and track those kids because we'll lose them along the way. Their 9th grade year, maybe they move away to Kansas their 10th grade year. All we know is they just didn't show up for school their 10th grade year. And we get busy on our campuses, and we have to make time to go and look for them. And so that's what these principals have been doing. They went and they were hunting down kids. And so if you will, just take a look right down here at the bottom. It'll summarize quickly What's going on with this? How were students located? So keep in mind, we've got students who, they were here, but where are they now? Through extensive review of past school records, countless phone calls, Facebook messaging, check-ins with possible relatives, and true detective sleuthing. This demanding, exacting work was completed by our hardworking principals and their support staff in record time. With such phenomenal results for 2018, LPS knew the same improvements could be accomplished for 2017. Due to the pressing request of LPS, the Oklahoma State Department of Education reopened the historical cohort graduation rate report for 2017, not just for LPS, but for the entire state of Oklahoma. Our principals have completed work on the 2017 cohort graduation rates and are eagerly anticipating the impact those rates will have on campus data. So if you take a look right here, and I'd like to, for us to acknowledge the work that these principals have done. These are my head principals. They lead the campuses, and the hours that they have put in on this has been absolutely unbelievable. Beginning with LHS, they had 245 students that were lost in this world. Where are they? They had to track them down. They started their 2018 cohort graduation rate at 56.09. They got it up to 78.54. That is an increase of 22.45. And that was led by Principal Tony Jones. Will you please stand? Let's give him a round. For MacArthur High School, they had 104 students lost, and they are now located. They began with a cohort graduation rate of 68.77. It is now at 90.37, an increase of 21.6. Miss Laura Pacino is the leader on that. And for Eisenhower High School, 144 students were lost. They started with 63.54, and they are now at 85.04. That is another increase of 21.5. Dr. Regina Deloach led that. So, you can see we've worked hard and had great results. We are absolutely thrilled with this, and I appreciate the opportunity to come back to you and follow up with this information. Do you have any questions?
It's fabulous.
Thank you.
Were a lot of those people that had just moved and not bothered to transfer records?
Yes.
Yeah, I figured.
Absolutely, yeah. And you're calling strange people, just, you know, the random numbers? Yes, maybe someone made arrangements for their secretary to be able to pick up their kid, and that's the only number that works anymore, so you're calling that secretary, hey, do you know where? Yes, it was quite an odyssey.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Trent, with your permission, may I add just a little bit?
Yes.
There was an article, and again, I don't want to add to, I just want to support and brag on the principal. Last Friday, I went to visit two of the high school principals' sites, and I know Ms. Pacino and Dr. Loach were both frantically trying to finish this up because the system wasn't working right. And so I decided I'd leave Mr. Jones alone. But I want to draw the, okay, I'm going to leave you.
You're the lucky one.
But there was a story in Oklahoma City, and I've got it right here, about how this phenomenon impacted the whole state. Because so you can see, and I applaud the bravery of our principals, Dr. Pope, and I also applaud the board for your ability. When we reported this information, we were not proud of those numbers, but they have worked so hard. Those numbers, and it's a phenomenon around the state, nobody had been tracking these this way, so every school in the state has experienced this in most schools have experienced this in some measure. And so this is exactly what's going on, and I just want to again reiterate what Ms. Trinidad said. Our high school principals and their counselors and their staff have worked tremendously hard on this. So
A true team effort, absolutely. All right, any further questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, on item 5C, action item request for support 16. Cohort 16, consisting of MacArthur, Lawton High, and Eisenhower High School, and the University of Virginia, PLE. I have Brenda Hatch and Kelly Trinidad. And let me go ahead as they come up. Let me go ahead and preface to the board. We realize there's not as much notice, but they were at UVA the last 2 weeks. And so this is on the board agenda. If the board needs us to table this or you need time to think about it, we want to make sure that you're comfortable. But again, I have to take some responsibility for they were gone. I was sick 2 days a week, so I didn't get a much chance to give them, the board much heads up about this being on the agenda. So, Mrs. Hatch.
Thank you. Good evening, Brenda Hatch, and I've spoken to you several times about UVA, and the last time at the Board of Education meeting on November 5th, we had a very candid discussion about our partnership with the University of Virginia's team, and you asked for data that supported why we should invest in our 3 high schools participating in Cohort 16. There's been speculation that the initiative isn't designed for high schools, and questions about why we need to send others to training, why the district wasn't able to implement the practices at all 3 high schools based on the training that we'd already received. Our discussion caused me to reflect not only on how far our district has come in the last 4 years, but also on why it was so much harder to implement the changes at the high school level. When I thought back to the successes of our other cohorts, a large contributing factor was that network of partner schools within our district who was going through the training at the same time. The 3 middle schools went through the training together. There has always been 2 or 3 elementary schools participating at the same time. Part of that success is meeting together, networking, learning from each other, challenging each other to create that success. Another key factor is consistent leadership who understood and was dedicated to the work. The size of the school has also proven to make a dramatic difference. When Lawton High went through the program, they did not have another high school to partner with. There was a change at the district level in the secondary leadership. There was a change in their shepherd support and accountability. And like I said, the size of the school caused the changes to be much slower. We underestimated how much harder it would be at the high school level, but changes did take place, and changes are continuing to take place, and that flywheel is finally starting to gain speed. When I left that meeting, I knew that I had to be sure of one more thing before I was willing to stand up here and approach you again, because there's no doubt in anyone's mind how I feel about the UVA initiative and how much I support it, but I'm not the one who's going to make it successful at the high school level. I had to know that Kelly Trinidad was not only committed to the work, but was passionate about it and the changes that are possible because of the work. I had to know that the 3 high school principals were all in. Definitely all in from Tony Jones, who has been through training, definitely all in from Dr. Deloach, who's been through training, and Laura Pacino, excited about the possibilities, but the first one to say, I need to see it. I need to see it for myself. I need to go through that training to understand. Successful changes do not happen based on compliance. At the district level, we could push this out and schools could comply, but that's not where dramatic changes take place. They take place when the leaders believe in the work and they can motivate the others to find solutions on how we can be better teachers, how we can be better leaders, and how we can serve our students at a level that will make our community proud and prepare them for college and careers. Another question that was brought up was about if UVA was right for high school. We have worked hard with the team from UVA, and they have made a commitment to help our 3 high schools move forward. They've even started this process throughout this year, knowing that we didn't even have funding secured. They recognize the need to help us develop future leaders for our district and high school secondary level. They recognize the need to develop instructional systems to meet those specific needs of high school. They recognize that we have 3 very unique high schools that need to keep that identity, but need to come together to confront difficult problems and improve internal ways of working. They have established a secondary focus to help us achieve these goals through training, through site visits, and through tailored support. At this time, I'm going to be quiet, and I'm going to let you hear from the people who are going to be doing the work. You have in front of you an infographic, and Kelly, is that the one that's 2-sided? That's the 2-sided one.
Tom's got them all down there.
No, you've got
No,
it.
they're good.
I'm hoarding some things, but not those.
There you go.
I got it.
So that infographic is going to summarize some of our key points, and at the end of their presentations, I've also asked Dr. Deegan to share the district's UVA financial history and obligations with you. And at the conclusion of our presentations, we look forward to addressing any questions that you might have. And at this time, I'm going to ask Dr. Deloach to share information with you about how far our high schools have come in the last 3 years.
Hello.
Hi.
Prior to UVA as a leader, I was a single voice that was discussing issues about students and staff members with a focus on attendance, behavior, and academic achievement in such a way that my staff did not fully understand my perceptions or my motives. Therefore, many times I was perceived as a villain, and we joke about it now, because I was discussing a shared problem-solving method of leadership that increases campus efficiency and students' achievement, as well as fosters leadership development and talent management from a business perspective. And in education, a lot of times we just don't think with a business model. However, as leaders in the district, we didn't even share a common vocabulary or common professional experiences. As a result of UVA, the high schools have begun to define data analysis, collaboration, instructional effectiveness in a common way so that we could move from one campus to another and we'd all be doing it the same way. We've talked about classroom management, non-negotiable standards in achievement and behavior of students and teachers with accountability at all levels of a systems approach to problem solving. For this reason, when I was relocated to Eisenhower, it was necessary to integrate leadership training for my staff prior to this school year for me to even begin, so that we would have common ground and my leaders would understand basically where I was coming from when I was talking to them. Presently, the high schools are still in need of training in order to sustain, and that's the big word, to sustain a problem-solving systems approach to educational leadership. As a final thought, all of the high schools are experiencing growing pains as we transition from managers of buildings to leaders who create career pathways for our students. Thank you. I am followed by Mrs. Laura Pacino.
Good evening, board members. I'm Laura Pacino, principal of MacArthur High School. Tonight, I'm here to discuss the status of our district's high schools and where we plan to move in the future. I have always believed that effective leadership requires what I call the 3 C's: collaboration, commitment, and communication. My colleagues and I are committed to ensuring our students' academic success, and we have effective communication with one another. Now, we hope to continue to work collaboratively to ensure the academic success of all our students. As we all know, our students are measured by state assessments, and the ACT is one such measurement. The ACT examines the readiness of our students for the rigors of collegiate work. For the past 5 years, our high schools' composite scores on the ACT have declined. In 2014, our district's composite ACT score was 20, and the state's composite score was 20.7. Last year, our district composite ACT score was 18.3, and the state's composite score was 19.3. Part of the decline may be contributed to the larger number of students taking the ACT. However, the results indicate that our district can clearly do better. We have good schools that we can work more collaboratively and effectively to increase our students' readiness for college and careers. Therefore, I'm hoping that we can build our leadership capacity and reorganize our systems to ensure that we are using data that aligns to our state standards and to the ACT. Through UVA, our high school administration can help develop leaders who effectively collaborate and communicate the needs of our students and teachers. We can help build the instructional capacity of our numerous alternative and emergency certified teachers who especially need the support of our veteran instructional experts and leaders. Our focus needs to be on improving the achievement of our students on state standards so that they are ready for college and careers. Thank you very much. Now I'd like to introduce Principal Jones.
Thank you, Principals Deloach and Pacino. Thank you for allowing me to speak in front of you this evening. I'm going to come from, I guess, a little kind of selfishly, I guess you could say. I'm going to give you more of an anecdote, and I'm the data point of one. I'm an outlier, if you will. And what a lot of people don't know, and I don't tell this story a lot, but I remember 5 years ago, that was the end of my second year of being a principal, assistant principal. I remember at the end of my second year, I remember Dr. Polk walking down the hallway of Lawton High School for some reason. And I said, Dr. Polk, can I speak with you? She goes, baby. You sure can. So we went to my office. And we spoke, and I asked several questions. Now, she didn't know it was on my mind, but it was a test. Because what she didn't know was that my third year, I was going to be back in the math classroom. There was no focus. There was no direction. There was not enough direction for Tony Jones. I felt like I was taking money for doing a job and not really doing it. I was holding a position hostage. I knew nothing about collaboration. I knew nothing about cohort data. I knew nothing about graduation data. I would not have envisioned myself even coming before this body and speaking. That was not even in my thoughts as a second-year principal. Fortunately, I did stick around. I was probably the first month or two of my third year. I got called over. Hey, we want to interview you. For what? Well, for this UVA deal. I said, okay. So when I walked in, I did my interview, I answered my questions. We'll talk to you later. We'll let you know what's going on maybe in a couple of weeks or so. To make a long story short, we began that process of UVA. We were chosen to participate in UVA. I'm at a point now, and I started seeing things that I had not seen before. There was focus. I felt the support. Even individuals who my direct supervisors were saying, hey, these are things that we didn't even know, so we couldn't teach you. And it was refreshing to have those conversations with my superiors. Are there people out there saying that UVA is something that we don't need? Yes. But I think, again, in order to, you got to pay the cost to be the boss. And there is work that goes into doing what we do. But the question is, do we, as my colleagues have already stated, do we stick with the status quo, or do we push ourselves to go to the next level, thereby pushing our students to go to the next level? I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm here to talk with you about the 5-year plan and how we plan to utilize all of these resources, these talents that are going to come our way from the training that's available at UVA. On the front of your handout, you'll see things that have already happened through their influence. And keep in mind, it's not that UVA has done this, but UVA has provided the leadership training that produces results like this. Before, we did not have teachers, core teachers, who had common planning times where you could sit down with a fellow English teacher and say, how are you teaching this subject or this particular concept? What are you doing that works? And that's what collaboration does. It was through leadership that we now have 4 hours. Every single core teacher has 4 hours to collaborate with their fellow teachers and making sure that we don't have that educational lottery that our students are subjected to when they have one good teacher who's teaching in one section, but someone else is with a struggling teacher. And it's just a luck of the draw who lands where. Through collaboration, all teachers learn together and they get better together. We now have interim assessments. That's how we assess how we're doing with our instruction, and that guides instruction whenever we look at the data. Our cohort graduation rate, as you've noticed, it's going through the roof, and even our student behavior here. We have been focusing through leadership, making sure that we do not put our kids in so many out-of-school suspensions that we're simply removing them from the educational process. And as a result, not disciplining them, but hurting their educational progress that they need to be making. We've got some performance yardsticks. As Mrs. Hatch mentioned, the implementation of UVA and leadership concepts and that sort of thing, it's much more difficult at a high school level, particularly the size of our high schools. They are massive ships to turn with a lot of ingrained ideals and concepts and many, many kingdoms and queendoms that have been built inside of classrooms. So whenever we move through this training, we're going to be looking at interim assessments geared to ACT. We're going to be assessing our staff on how we're progressing. So we'll have a survey at the beginning of the school year. We'll check it again during the middle of the school year, and then we'll be assessing it. It'll be on all of the talent levers and management levers that UVA tells us can make such a huge impression. Professional collaboration is going to be evaluated. Right now, we're evaluating it on the quantity. We're going to be moving towards the quality of it next. That's the next layer. We'd like to bring in exit interview process for our teachers who do choose to leave our districts and leave our high school campuses so that we can better understand how to support them. We're going to be, of course, looking at cohort graduation rates, ACT scores, and student discipline. You know, it was told to you that most of the time, our campuses who go through this high-level training, they've got a buddy with them. They've got 2 or 3 sister campuses who get to come into the process with them, and they share those ideals. And I have a big saying, and I firmly believe it, the smartest person in the room is the room. And whenever you give us the opportunity to put these 3 high schools through this training, that means that our room gets so much bigger and so much smarter because they're going to be connected. I know I don't have to remind you that in any district, not just in Lawton, but in any district, 5th grade math scores matter. 8th grade reading scores matter. But the way a district is judged is on its high schools. They are the flagships that absolutely tell the entire community in the world what we're about and what the quality of our students are. To turn away from the high schools right now, we have an opportunity to bring them into the fold and really make some lasting changes. And they're so worth it. The hours that they put in, teachers, students, and principals alike. So I'm here to ask you to consider approving a contract for us so that we can take these leaders into the level of leadership training that they need in order for us to be successful. I believe that Dr. Deegan has got some additional information on the cost here.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Trinidad, thank you. They gave me the really boring information. Now Brenda did hand me out, but I actually had a same copy, so I'm gonna pass one of these down. And I do have extra copies for Kathy and Kathy and Denise and everything. It's a double-sided piece of paper. Before I go into that, though, let me start off. So put that down for a second. I'm going to lead you through it. I don't want you distracted. I broke the cardinal rule. Don't hand it out first. I'm learning. I need to go better UVA training. What I want to think that I was very candid with the board, and I've been very candid with Ms. Hatch, the entire team, and I was very candid with the University of Virginia staff. I told them a year ago, UVA does not have its game together for a high school model. UVA has only done small schools. They have not done large high schools like Lawton High, and they recognized that there were issues that they had to address that we're not doing another one. So they've held for an entire year. It wasn't my concern about the UVA process. My concern was about the fact that UVA had not realized they were used to working with sports cars, and now we're working with a bus, because Lawton High is a tremendously large entity. And to think about working with all 3 high schools would have been a tremendous challenge that I didn't think they had really come to the table and thought about. They've added staff, they've changed their approach, and I believe they have it. In addition to that, prior to this, they'd only worked with Fulton County, Georgia, I believe, on any high schools. And the only district model they had worked with was Denver, Colorado, with their administration staff. So they had not tackled a beast as large as Lawton in any of their previous cohorts. None of us have any doubt that the processes and procedures they've been training us will work, but they had to have a different plan. So I told them last year, no, we're not doing it until you can bring the evidence to the table. I was very candid with the board. What I'm here to say tonight is I do believe they have convinced me. It's never been a question about the process. It's been a question about whether they had the good plan. I believe they have the plan. I believe they have the right staff. The issues that they have addressed, the more collaboration, the planning times, the cohort rates, none of those would have happened without the UVA training that started in Lawton High. I see now, for the first time that I've been here in my 6 years, I see the 3 high school principals regularly collaborating. I see them regularly sharing notes. They're still competing like crazy. Matter of fact, they're still competing in UVA. But they are now on the same page when it comes to we're a district and we're trying to make sure all our students have the same opportunities. They're thinking of things that have never been thought before because they are talking for the first time. These are not insignificant things. Another question is, can they do it without UVA? I'm going to tell you, this group of professionals can do this without UVA and without another cohort. But in a time when principals and staff are stretched, they can do it, but it will make it much easier for them. Mr. Jones was not the head principal when we went through this. Mr. Jones will be the head principal now. This is an opportunity, but with the board's support, it will make it much easier for them to enact what we need to do. I'll throw this out as an option. Where's the judge? He's not here. Okay, this is not bribery. But I would like to, if the board will consider approving this, I would like to, and I'm going to tell UVA it's not an option, I would like to invite 1 or 2 board members to go to UVA with us in Virginia in the summer. You don't have to be there for the whole thing, but I want you to audit it. I want you to sit in and see what I've seen 3 summers in a row. I didn't go last summer. I want to have an option for board members that would be a board action, but I think it'd be well worth, because I think the board needs to see what's going on. I'm going to share a little bit about this, some financial information. And then we have Dr. Polk waiting in the wings. They focused on the high school aspect, but Dr. Polk, if you have any questions related to elementary and middle school academic performance, she has information for you. Okay, now you can look at your perspective. Thank you all very much. First thing is, how much has this cost us in the past? And on one side, it says previous UVA training expenditures. A total, over the course of those 3 years, of $1 million. However, the first year was paid entirely with a state grant that was provided from the Oklahoma State Department of Education, did not impact our operating budget at all. The second was paid with McMahon Foundation, and the third was paid partially with McMahon Foundation carryover and district funds. So the impact over the last 3 years to the district financially has actually been $255,400. And again, that's probably not to the penny, $255,000. Over the last 3 years, our budget, regular operating budget, has been $330 million over that time. So $225,000 over 3 years. The seed money, that has enabled us to maximize and multiply that seed money by 5 times. Now again, Title I, Title II, those funds are eligible for different programs, but they do not count into our regular budget. I'm not trying to smoke and mirrors here. I'm just saying that we have maximized available resources and minimized the impact to us financially. So that's $255,000 over 3 years and $330 million. That's what we've spent with this, but that's the impact we've gotten out of it. And again, I am 110% sold on UVA and the processes they've trained me on. I don't know if the board realizes or if the public realizes this, but when it comes to out-of-state trips, I've never gone on out-of-state trips like board or school superintendent meetings. I've only gone to 2 things, and that is a Title I convention with students, with principals and teachers, and then I've gone to UVA, which is with principals and teachers, because those were instructional, because it's my job to make sure I have my head around our instructional, and I've never seen anything better than UVA. I've never seen it, anything better and more impactful than a training. If you turn the page over, you'll see UVA Cohort 16 financial protections. This one would come out of our budget. This would come out. We have the funds to do so. Again, this will not impact whether or not we can hire any more teachers. This will not impact whether or not we can hire any more support staff. This will not take away from anything we want to do, textbooks, technology, or anything else. It will cost us that amount, which if you look at it in year 1, is a very infinitesimal part of the budget, year 2, et cetera. Over the cost of those 3 years, that's the cost, and I'm just here to tell you, knowing my staff, we have our principals here asking for this. I just implore the board to consider it, and then if we have any other questions, Dr. Polk is available, but now I'd like the board, if you have any questions for me or the staff, please. We're ready. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Where do you want me to start? So my first thing is, Ms. Hatch describes this as speculation that it's not intended for high schools. It's not intended for high schools. So we're going to be, by virtue, the guinea pig to do this. Is this correct?
What we're, I'll let Ms. Hatch answer, and I had given the board that in their organizational structure, now as far as instruction, as far as organizational dynamics, as far as change processes, those don't change in schools. And the reason I did not at the beginning feel like it was ready for high school was because they had not done a school with 1,800 students. They usually dealt with schools with 600. A multi-department, 1,800 school, 6A high school, they had not done, but maybe a couple times, and we saw that. And so they had to realize they need a different support structure to treat Lawton High as if it were 3 or 4 smaller schools. That is the process.
So now they have done that?
I believe they have set those in place. Ms. Hatch and Ms.
No, I'm
Trinidad?
not asking if they're set in place. Have they implemented this in a high school before? Because we're not getting a discounted rate or anything for
I'll let
it.
y'all, Ms. Hatch, Ms. Trinidad?
I shared with the board the last time, and I know that Dr. Deegan has shared his concerns. There is nothing about this program that is not geared for a high school. We just found that with it being a larger setting, and I'll go back and talk about elementary, for example. With elementary, with it being small, with there being one principal, with there being 20 teachers, usually pretty willing to make changes, try something new, it was easier. With the high school, when you walked in and you trained one initially, and then we went to training one head principal and assistant principal and 3 teachers, and you walked in and you're trying to motivate, convince, and change the practices of 120 teachers, we had to stop and look at how would that approach be different. As a matter of fact, they even suggested when we first started that maybe you just did the math department, maybe you just did your English department. And so it's not that anything that they're doing is not for high school. We just had to be able to tackle the size of it and to make those changes. And that's one of the reasons we said it was harder to turn that ship as well, to get the mindset changed, to get those practices changed. It's not that it's not meant for high school, and Mr. Jones and Dr. Glitch, tell me if there was something in our training that you felt wasn't geared toward high school. What were your struggles? You were there, you lived it every day.
I was actually there at Lawton High prior to the UVA training. Everything that I've learned in my doctorate and in working with, let's say, school improvement for state ed, it's the same concepts. We're moving parallel. It's just that this program gives you more tools to make a change. It's hard to change 120 people. Just by the word change, that means that something they've done is incorrect. Now, for high school, we're more independent, we want to get in our world and we want to do our job. We don't want anybody to tell us how to do our job. So that takes a whole lot to change that mindset. It's a little different than the elementary and the middle school mindset. So when I was dropped into Lawton High, I was put there all by myself. And I'm telling them, okay, we're going to change this and that. And they're looking at me like, why, right? So I had to use the Cotter model, one of the things that I got from that program. And it's a change model that we use in the Army as well. But it's actually, they spell it out for you. Okay, you show the why, you build the urgency. You get people along with you to build up for that change. How do you change them? By information, by experiences. The biggest change I saw is when I actually took my teachers and department leaders to the training with me. Because remember, I'm busy, I'm on it, because this is my job, I'm gonna do my job, right? But the most change I saw is when I took them there and they got to see the instructors themselves. And then I didn't have to work as hard. It was just like a different spark in their eyes. And now they're in. The ones that I left at Lawton High are in. But the problem is if you move to another campus, well, then you have to start all over again. Because in education, we do very little for leadership. I'm so happy I was an Army officer before I came an administrator. because I've had leadership training that was very helpful. So I could take that with me. Everybody else doesn't have that. So therefore, we've got to help them to get that strength in order to deal with all the things they do. We're not even just dealing with curriculum and making curriculum decisions. We're running a building with 3,000 people in it at one time, right? And we're doing all that simultaneously. So that just takes knowing exactly what you're doing and being, you have a purposeful community. You have purposeful leadership, knowing how to get those things done. And they don't teach you that in your master's program.
I don't have any concerns with the UVA process and the collaborating. I think where my personal concern is, and I was the one that asked, how much have we spent on this over this time? So if not we personally, but I'm counting LPSF, if they donated, McMahon, whoever, we've put $1 million into this, which I'm not saying our children are definitely not worth $1 million, but where do we look at our return on investment? So if we're investing $1 million in this, we should see significant changes. And I haven't seen those. We were given this whole booklet full of data, and I'm not a statistician, I don't claim to be. I've looked through it, and I don't see the meaningful changes that would say, yeah, we need to spend this. I don't know.
Can I share, because it's just right along the lines of that? It's the same concern I have, and so I just want to echo what her concern is. I think all of us, obviously, we all want to and care very much about investing in our teachers and the right programs. Leadership is important. I think things like some of the principles of planning periods and common language, like I agree with all of that and totally see the value in it. For me, the issue is that looking at the data so far that we've been presented in that book, there's no concrete trend line that we can see of schools that went through it and schools that didn't in the different time periods. Like the metric of success, because I don't know any different, what I'm looking at is two things, test scores and staff turnover. And in looking in both of those factors, is staff turnover in those schools that are doing the program when they start implementing it, is it going down? In other words, is this inspiring our educators and getting them more involved and getting them excited? We don't see the trend line in that. And then same question with the scores. There's not a clear set of data that can attribute the changes to UVA from the data that we've looked at so far. So if I see certain schools that are going up and certain schools are going down, and it didn't paint a clear enough picture for me yet. So for me, I would just need more data to be able to draw those conclusions.
Hello.
Hi.
And you know I'm going to say baby before it's all over. And I hope if I'm trying to find certain people in the room that they can address those two things. But please note, those were not necessarily the two things we went into this to measure. For me, very personally, it was in regards of our leadership pipeline. We had a major problem in regards of Mr. Jones shared with one of the things we have been trained in is a BEI, this behavior event inventory, so that you can tell if a leader is ready for the next step in regards of turning a building around. When you're finished with that 3.5-hour interview, you're given the score to determine if they are ready even for the turnaround. I don't want to disrespect anyone in this room, but I've got to share just how far behind we were before we even can get traction to show you the growth you need. Mm-hmm. Please also be mindful, we are actually looking forward to February 28th, which will be our very first report card that's going to measure 2 years consistently. So in order for us to say, boom, here we go, we are just wrapping up what we call principal summits. Feeder schools from the middle schools all come together and they talk about where they are and where they're going. After the principals walk out, Ed Services, we stay behind. And I tell you, our conversations are so enlightening. We've done this now for 4 years, and the caliber of principalship and leadership that we have now than we've had 4 years ago, significantly different. And we're measuring that by principals now coming to the table, talking about students and standards. Before, when we came to the table, we criticized each other. We criticized other departments. But all of that actually is the innate leadership that they brought to the table. Hard to measure that until you're actually sitting in those seats. And when we have leaders who do not know the direction in which they should be taking their building, real hard for a teacher to follow someone who doesn't know exactly where they're going. So I ask you to be patient with us in order to get that concrete. But when we were meeting even on today, we've got Sullivan Village, Pioneer Park, and Carriage Hills that are coming through right now. Sullivan Village is knocking it out of the park. And you ask, well, what's the difference in what you're doing now? Some of the tools that she's been equipped with is students need to set their goals. We don't need to set them, principals don't need to set them, teachers don't. Students need to be accountable for their education themselves. And that's the most important thing I've got to say. When we go to training, they don't tell us, do this, do that. What they actually do is tap into us to find out just how far we can take within ourselves the leadership. It's that law of the lid. I can't take you any further than which I'm able to go myself. So it has been a major process. If we stop right now, I promise you, we're gonna do all we can. But I'm fearful for our high schools. They have just enough knowledge to be dangerous. Mr. Jones came in secondary. He had a different leader. Dr. Deloach, who now is at another site, who knows the best practice, but she doesn't have the staff now in the training to lead. Once again, now she's just saying, appearing to be a dictator, this is what you need to do. I'm telling you, we're at a point now, we are moving ahead. We're at that crucial tipping point. We can go one way or the other. And like, I am fearful if they don't have these three leaders right here, if they don't have something concrete in which they can build their framework on. They're thirsty for it. And as Ms. Hatches said, she had to find out the buy-in to Ms. Trinidad, because it's going to solely rest on her and her accountability for these head principals. Said a whole lot there, but please, yes, ma'am. And so with Lawton High School, with the lowest senior graduation rate, the highest dropout rate, and the lowest ACT, we truly celebrated their school on today in regards of their star reading and just getting the participation rate. We're talking a school that may have only had 20% of their students take a test. How can we help you with your growth if they're not even taking a test? And now they're in the 90 percentile so that they can have the information in order for them to help with next day instruction. And so we're going to do, but I'm gonna tell you, I'm fearful because they have just enough knowledge that they can almost hurt their development in regards of where they've gone with their leadership to this point. Make sense, guys?
May I ask a question?
I still have more questions.
Which school, and I might get in trouble, tell me if you can't answer it. Which of the high schools has gone through this?
Lawton.
Lawton High. It's rhetorical. You told me something today about our interim assessments at this point. Of the three high schools, and again, I don't want to start any competition amongst you. Gotta get in trouble with this. But of the three high schools at this point, where do we, who's, just barely, of course.
Yeah.
Who's leading the test scores?
Well, right
interim
now,
assessments?
what had happened was we were sharing, and one of their, what we call big rocks or goals was just even get the participation rate up. And so that's a written goal that they have. And coming to the table, Mr. Jones was kind of down on himself. And it was Miss Anderson who called out across the room, no, sir, you need to hold your head up and be proud because you're at 9th grade, 89%, 10th grade, 89%, 11th grade, 90%, and then 12th grade, 90%. We've got another school at 52%.
Is that ACT?
No, this is the star reading participation
reading.
rate. You see what I'm saying? But before, we didn't even have the buy-in for them to even take the test. They mean literally call in and say, can we opt out of the test? So they talk about the ship turning. Guys, it's even bigger than that. We're talking about people who have been trained in very specific content knowledge, and they are the expert. So I go to try and share something with a biology teacher or a AP teacher, but this is deeper than that. This is how do I help them in best practices for them in order to achieve. And so we celebrated Lawton High, and guys, it's been a long time since we've celebrated Lawton High. Don't want to hurt anybody's feelings.
Dr. Bridges had a quick question.
Yes.
Yes, so I think I heard correctly that that there's a 5-year plan. So what we were given was maybe a 2-year plan,
3 year.
maybe 3-year.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the financial commitment for the last 2 years?
Sustainability.
Yeah, sustainability. The 5-year plan is really our outlook, my outlook. We have these yardsticks right here, and measuring progress for UVA is going to be much more complicated than what it would be at an elementary. It's just simply because of all of the different moving parts. So for 5 years, whether or not we're with UVA, we're going to continue to measure the performance of these campuses in this way so that you, the board, and also all of us have points of reference. We always come back, we look at these particular areas. And so this is simply defining this for our use. The contract with UVA runs for 3 years. We have our initial training, and then we have 2 years of sustainability. And the point is here is once we get trained and it's all over with at the end of 3 years, we don't go back doing what we were doing. That'd be ludicrous. This plan right here tells all of us, this is what's important, this is what we focus on. And so we'll take 5 years here to take a look and see what the progress is, see how we're moving, and that sort of thing. So this is simply our commitment, the district's commitment to staying focused on leadership.
So that's not the contract through UVA?
No, ma'am, it is not. It is not. But it is our commitment. Yes, ma'am.
Well, you're up there because this was for you. You mentioned interim assessments.
Yes.
Are these additional assessments and tests above and beyond what the kids are already required by the state to do that we're administering?
We do interim assessments across the district at every level, elementary, middle, and high school. These are small assessments. They're basically formative, meaning that you're measuring how kids are learning, and it's not a big cumulative test at the end of it. It's how their knowledge is forming. And whenever you do those right, you can take interim assessments and you can let that data drive your instruction. And you keep on keeping the kids going in the right direction. We already do that, and quite frankly, it's a good instructional practice.
So these are not additional tests?
They are additional.
Above and beyond?
Yes, they are.
Additional. Yeah, that's
Right
what
now.
she's saying, they are additional.
Right, and we're aware that we have too many testing situations going on in the district. When I first arrived here, maybe 6 months ago, I was concerned. Whenever I saw the testing calendar, I said, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's what I said. I profoundly agree that we test far, far, far too much. One of the things that I believe that we've got to do at the secondary high school level is we need to get our testing in line with ACT. You know, I don't mind interim assessments. I don't mind seeing where the kids are, as long as I know that they're going to go down the path to ACT and perform well. And so that's one of my personal big objectives is to streamline our testing and get it much more focused on ACT to the best of our ability.
So does that mean decreasing interim assessments?
If that's what it takes, as long as we have effective tests that will guide direction and give us instructional focus, then that's what we need. Now, keep in mind, STAR is something that is connected with a DODEA grant. That's a Department of Defense grant, and that grant gives us a lot of money in the district. It gives us the money to be able to tutor before and after schools at all levels. But one of the requirements is if you have the grant, you have to have some type of monitoring system. STAR is encouraged and recommended by the State Department. And so, okay, let's put it in there.
So can that replace some other type of assessment?
We're hopeful that it can be. In a perfect world, we would like for the high schools to be able to disengage from that process. But quite frankly, whenever you break the rules of a grant, they want their money back. It's the craziest thing. And so whenever you don't have that money to give back, we've gotten our wrists tied up here. And that wasn't on my watch. I can tell you though, we're taking a look at what we're applying for on grants, because we're not going to be driven by what a guideline on a grant says. No, we have educational experts here who can make those decisions. And that's where the decision should lie. But you do have my committed response here in front of everyone here. Testing has got to get scaled back. We have to leave the teachers alone to let them teach.
Okay, thank you.
Have some of the federal and state testing mandates been reduced?
Yes. If you take a look at the past 5 years, yes, they have been reduced. And it's also a plus for us at the secondary level. We've moved from doing an OSTP, which is kind of the general state mandated. They allowed us to drop that and count the ACT, because so many of our kids were going to be taking the ACT anyway. So that's cut back. So at the high school level, we don't have the OSTP that we've got to test, but we do the ACT.
May I share one, stay right there. May I share one quick aspect that you may not be aware of, is that Ms. Trinidad and Ms. Hatch are working on revamping our assessment and accountabilities office completely. And part of that will be in regards of the testing and the correct assessment that needs to take place. All of this is coming at an opportune time, but please note, even that aspect of our planning to do that and that legwork, we started at the University of Virginia, because we had to look at, as a district, what are we doing to put the lid on the principals, and assessment was one of those things. And so with the opportunity to hire, to bring in, I've asked them to come up with what does that look like. And then, that's why she can speak so adamant in regards of, on her watch now, what's about to take place in regards of assessment. Please note, I'm speaking completely before my 2 o'clock meeting with Dr. Deegan on tomorrow, but these young ladies have worked diligently to share with me in regards of reducing that testing at the secondary level.
What other questions do you have?
I have a couple more, do you?
No, go ahead.
This, I guess, first for you, Dr. Deegan, you had mentioned in the article that you wrote this weekend in the paper, mentioned, and I can't remember exactly how it was phrased, but something about this being the first time, trailblazing, revolutionary, something along those lines for UVA. So what is it about what we're wanting to do now that's different from what they've ever done before?
And I think I probably described it poorly by saying high school, but I think Ms. Hatch described it perfectly. It's not a high school elementary, it's a size issue. They are now finally recognizing that their structures were not geared. I came from a district of 400 students to a district at the time that had almost 16,000. I understand having to reset your approach, which is why we told them no in the past. So I did that was a poor description. The size is the revolution, because they've not done this in a district our size, except for Denver, Colorado, out of district. That's the next step with them. How do you create a district model? But right now, to move with 3 high schools of this size, it's out of what they've done in the past. The structures are the same, but it's the size difference is how I see it. Does that make sense?
It does, yes.
Sir,
So I made a mistake in describing it as elementary or high school. It really was the size, because instead of dealing with one principal at an elementary of 300 or a charter school, they're dealing with 5 or 6 principals in the same building. Those are things that I see the problem, and I do believe they've addressed them.
And let me assure you, in the 20 years that I've been in education, I've been down in Texas, I've been here, I've been through a lot of campus initiatives at the secondary level. Here's the bottom line. It doesn't matter whether we're doing UVA, Great Expectations, Gear Up. It doesn't matter what the program is. By nature, high schools are immobile. That's just how it is. I'm a high school person. I'm the high school teacher. I always was. And so I say this about my own people. We become those experts in those areas. Everyone has their stake that they have claimed. And moving a high school, and I promise you, it's not that it's UVA or anything else. It won't matter what we use. It takes longer. What other questions?
Mine's not a question so much as a statement.
Okay.
I'm not an educator, never pretended to be. I've been around a long time, but I'm not an educator. But I have to have the confidence in Dr. Deegan and our team here that if you really feel this strongly about it, that it's something that we need to do. And truly, with our budget, it's a minuscule part of the budget to go ahead with the 3-year plan. So, I mean, I've got to support you because I think you
Well,
all.
I would say I felt the same way, but my first year, maybe it was my second year here, we were told something quite different. We were told we will train our schools and then our schools will train themselves. We just need this for 2 years. But now we're all these years into it, and now we're $1 million into something that no one has been able to show us direct connection between spend this money, get these results. And I'm sorry, I'm very analytical, and that's what I have to see. I mean, we're investing a ton of money. Yes, this $300,000 isn't a ton of money, I get it. But when we look back over the history and we're talking about $1 million for one district, and I should be able to see, no matter what standards we use, if you want to use test scores, if you want to use teachers, I don't care. Use something that's consistent, and it's not there. No one is able to show us that. And that's my concern. I think the process of it is fabulous. I think everyone needs leadership skills. I think we would all benefit from it. I think the whole board would benefit from it. But do we benefit to the amount of $1 million that we could possibly be using in a different area?
Dr. Bridges,
I don't know.
Let me ask you this question.
Yes.
First, you know, where we're at now, we have 10% of our staff right now are emergency certified. Until this year, thanks to, and she's still not forgiven me, it's taken us 2 years to restore textbooks. Despite having no textbooks, despite having 90 emergency certified teachers, we have stayed consistent academically and not fallen backwards. And we've had schools move from the F to the B, from the D to the A. All of those things happen directly because of UVA. But here's what I'm going to ask you. I think Dr.
How is it direct? I can't see that.
Well, in my opinion.
Okay,
as
and
being involved,
that's it.
Exactly.
An opinion.
There's no way we can tie anything to any one
Okay.
particular thing. But here's what I'm going to ask you, Dr. Bridges.
Yes.
I respect your concerns because I brought them to you and tried to put the
Yes.
seeds in your heads.
Yeah.
If you can't give us 3 years, will you give us 5 months? And here's what I'm going to ask. Under policy BDB, I believe, the board can appoint a subcommittee of board members. And I would recommend we have Miss Mary Bradley here, be a board member at this time. In the summer, in June, I would like the board to consider, if you'll consider giving us 5 months. After July 1st, we will not be bound to this contract, but if we can go through 5 months, and if a subcommittee of board members will join us in Virginia to see what we're doing, and then if you come back and that subcommittee reports it's a bad idea, we'll walk away. But if you'll give us 5 months, that's not $300,000. That's whatever costs we would incur between now and June, if the board will approve this. In July, it'll be on the agenda, and that board subcommittee will be able to report back and tell the board
You
it's
see
worth
what
it.
you're doing, right?
I do see what I'm doing
Okay.
here. I'm trying to give you an opportunity.
I
5
will
months.
be here in July
No.
to determine if that was a
But
good
here's
thing
another
or
thing,
not.
with the board's permission, since Dr. Bridges will no longer be a board member, she can attend.
No.
And it won't break any quorum.
No.
I think
No,
this is
no, no,
one of
no.
those things when you experience and you see it.
And
But in the meantime, over the next few board meetings, we will bring back more data than you could ever have imagined. In the next 5 months, you'll have no doubt.
And maybe that's what I need,
That's
it's just
what you- that's
the
what we'll
data,
do.
but that's what we asked for before, and I got this giant book of data that doesn't tell me anything.
Well, we are getting, the board is more sophisticated in its questions it's asking. We're getting better in trying to predict that. But I'm asking for a 5-month commitment, and over the next 5 months, if you need a presentation every board meeting, but if we can get that at July 1, if it's not, we'll walk away from UVA. But if we can at least go the next 5 months and get to that training for these staff, is it June? June is in the summer session. We have no obligation after July 1st.
Can I ask a follow-up on
Yes.
that? That would make me comfortable personally?
Absolutely.
Beyond seeing it, because I have no doubt the curriculum is fantastic, and everybody who has gone through it is a sold-out believer. I go to a lot of conferences for work myself, and I know how that is. I also know my weakness in teaching it to my staff and having them embrace it on the same level. So I have no doubts at all that the program is phenomenal. I think it's a great offer, and I think it would be great for a board member to go. But I would also like to see that, whoever that is, be involved at the school level to see the implementation of it as well on a scale like MacArthur would be great, because it has no ties to this program yet. I'd be more curious than anything to see the implementation rollout of that program. So that's my first question. My second question is, yes, I think that there's some additional data points that we can be really specific on, like what we're looking for. That's number 2. And number 3 is, would the board have a chance to talk to somebody at UVA at some point, by Skype or something along those
I'm
lines?
gonna answer all 3 of those questions.
Perfect.
The first question, we could actually have 2 board subcommittees, as many as you want, where when the board authorizes staff to act as a subcommittee, or 2 board members to go in as a subcommittee, they can do those very things, interact, go into buildings, et cetera, report back to the board. The other subcommittee, or whoever you want, could go to Virginia. And we would spend the next 5 months, because I've never been more sure of a program or the results, but like you said, Dr. Bridges, you can't actually tie anything. You could say it was because of the weather ultimately if we wanted to, so we have to. Be able to tie it, we at least can show growth. That's without a doubt. If we can be trusted the next few months to show you the growth, go through these processes. I have no doubt, I'm speaking on my staff, and they might be thinking you're crazy, Deegan, but yes, we can do those. We will spend the next few months getting you the data. We're getting back, this is new for us. Boards have not done this amount of questioning to us as staff. That's what a board's responsibility is. So it kind of makes us uncomfortable, but we welcome it. If you will trust us, give us 5 months, we'll do that. We'll have a committee not only at Virginia, but also to do the same and observe the collaboration processes that are going on, not only in the high schools, but the elementaries and the middle schools. I would love to see that happen. And then finally, yes, we will have somebody from UVA either Skype in or here in person.
That'd be great. I appreciate that. And for us, and I shouldn't.
Make
speak
sure you
for
got that in the
board,
minutes, Denise.
I will say for me, this is not a bunch of trying to make everybody work extra hard for $300,000, because I understand it's a minuscule amount, but I want to make sure that what we're doing is something that everybody is it's meaningful, and the teachers truly feel like they're benefiting from it and not taking them in the wrong direction. Do you know what I'm saying? That it's not just not a negative, but that it's a positive. So anyway, that's all I'll say.
Yeah, the teachers I've interacted with have really sung its praises.
So
I've had both.
I've had both.
Yeah,
and that's
oh, go ahead,
that's
Mr. Easter.
part of. Yeah.
Why would we need 2 subcommittees?
Well, one would be
Wouldn't be-
identified to go to UVA in Virginia, and you can decide that later. And I think Ms. Bradley, since she's new, if she could make it, would be perfect, because she's brand new, she doesn't have a preconceived notion.
And she's an educator.
And an educator. And then the second part, but having what Ms. Edwards talked about, having people in and sitting in collaboration and observing this and watching and interacting. When the board uses that BDB policy to set a subcommittee, that allows the board, because it allows that to happen. I'd love to see both happen, and the third with UVA coming. Promise they'll be here, and they'll probably insist coming in person, but I know they'll be here on video.
Right.
If you'll give us 5 months, we'll remove any doubt. These men and women will remove any doubt.
If I may, before we close out, what will be real important for me as well as my team is to ensure we know what goal we're going to measure. I heard you say two. One was in regards of teacher turnover. Please know, even now, they wrestle with What do we show them? What do we, and I think it'll be real important, even before we venture out, we know what goals we're going to set and how we're going to measure ourselves before we go down the road. And I did hear you say teacher turnover and what will be
Well, the first time that I heard about the UVA program, that's what I was told, what we were measuring the success on was the lack of, or the fact that teacher turnover and staff turnover goes down and that test scores go up. So if I should be looking at other data, then that's totally fine, but that's just what my paradigm from the first conversation.
And for clarity purpose, yes, ma'am. And so for clarity purposes, I think it's real important, if these are at least 2, we'll add a couple more that the board needs to see. I think we need to know that up front, and then we'll continue and we can run our charts accordingly.
I don't
Is that?
And just, we don't want them like tested extra.
No,
Just
no.
to say that. I'm not
I
asking for
understand.
that.
I understand.
If we have results of the interim testing that's been taking place, I think that might be.
We'll just already use that information. Yes, sir.
That might be helpful.
Yes, sir. Yes,
And
sir.
Dr. Bridges, before you get off, I'd like you to consider being on the group that goes in, the other 2 board members that go into the schools and observe. Because I don't want you to leave this board in April with any doubts that you're leaving us in the right path. So just a suggestion.
And I did, and don't want to belabor it, but I do have information off of STAR, in which the information that we're using for Eisenhower, Lawton High, and MacArthur, the number of students tested, I have that number. I also have before me in regards of 2017, 2018 scores in regards of how they're doing in math and reading in regards of that information also. So I want you to know I do have that available on tonight.
Good.
Okay?
So let me be clear what you're asking for. You'd like the 67,500?
Well, no,
approved, or
if
how?
we go forward with this, we'll only owe what we, and they've done this with us before. If we back out, we will, if you want to commit to 1 year, then I'd love to hear that. It'll probably cost close to that because most of it is in that summer training. So I'm going to say 67 would be the absolute max, travel and everything. But then if the board's subcommittee or subcommittees report back to the board and you feel like it's still a bad idea, we walk away July 1st and we'll figure it out because I know they can do it either way.
Dr. Deegan, I'd like to refigure that because part of one of the things that UVA has allowed us to do is for their UVA fee for the summer training, they have allowed us to wait till after July to pay that. And so that wasn't figured in until the 2nd year, and so I don't want to mislead
Okay.
anyone. And so I'd like to get you the figure for that.
Okay. Okay, so we will only incur actual expenses used up to that point. That's the better way to say it. Actual expenses used up through July, and I think, but again, we'll come back if we need to and make sure that the board is comfortable. But what I would like to recommend is the board approve this through the 1st of July with a subcommittee, or if you want to identify the other subcommittees later. I really don't want to hold the staff up from what they have requested to do. If the board, but again, it's the pleasure of the board.
Do we have a motion?
Well, I have no problem making a motion to approve it through the end of June, so.
Yeah, I'll second that through the end of June.
Call the roll, please.
Ms. Nyworth?
Yes.
Ms. Edwards?
Yes.
Dr. Bridges?
No.
Mr. Jester?
Yes. Okay.
And I think if you wanted to support a subcommittee, you could add that to that motion. Mr. Dwayne could, I don't know if you want to do that.
Yeah, we can do that at the next board meeting.
Okay, we do it next board meeting.
Have time to think about it.
Okay.
And look at dates and
Look at
Thank you.
dates and so forth.
see what the dates are.
You're welcome to stay, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
I gotta get back and find the board agenda again.
5D.
All right, under action 5D, this is Miss Lynn Cordes is gonna come give some information. I've asked her to give this information. It's about, an action item about approving the approval of the board to implement an official, Homeland Security, Oklahoma School Security Institute Anonymous Tip Line. The board has a poster there. This is designed for schools, and Lynn will give you the quick overview and let the board decide.
I will, there you go. I have the poster right here, and so in addition to our safety measures that the district is already implementing, this is another free service provided by Homeland Security, which we work with them pretty well. And so what it is a 24-hour line. A person answers it, takes any kind of tips or information that could impact our district. They take all of that, funnel it through, and they also report it back to our district for accountability. So Chief will be in the know about that and ensure that our schools are safe due to reports. It's another thing that we'll add into the board meeting that Ms. Brisolera will share with you. The reports will be given to our chief, and then he will pass it down to his. So the other good thing about that is there is a person, no matter who calls at any time of the day, 24/7, and they will take that information and pass it on. And the last thing is that we're going to put these posters that you have throughout the schools. We also have another one for the FBI tip, so this will be an added measure and resources for our district.
Awesome. Great,
Any
thank you.
questions? You're welcome.
Is that an action item?
I'd like the board to approve it as an official
Oh,
avenue of
yes.
anonymous communication.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
I second.
Call the roll, please.
Ms. Nyworth?
Yes.
Ms. Edwards?
Yes.
Dr. Bridges?
Yes.
Mr. Jester?
Yes.
All right, on item 5E, we have a second information, this is, hold it. With your, item 5E. This is 5E is just an information item, 5F is related, so I apologize. I was thinking, it's an information presentation of department goals by members of the district support team. This is a follow-up to the safety presentations Mr. Hornbeck gave last semester, but in addition to that, we've asked Mr. Cook to come in and share some safety-related issues as related to transportation. So I'll pass it off to you two gentlemen. I don't remember who's first. No, it's on my report.
Good evening. I'm Chief Hornbeck with the Lawton Public School Police Department, and I thank you for this opportunity you've given me to come back to the board and update you on the security issues that we've seen through the district and some changes that we made and updates that we've done to enhance the district's security. I had 3 rocks, big rocks that I'd outlined at the first of the year. And first thing I want to say that I'm thankful for the opportunity y'all have given me to be the chief of police for the police department. I was humbled when y'all selected me as the chief, and the time that I'd spent, the 4 years I'd spent in the district working, I've seen several issues that I felt like needed addressed. And when the board started seeing those issues, and Dr. Deegan, and they challenged me to come up with some big rocks, it wasn't hard for me to do. And one of the things that my goal was to increase the training efforts and the overall training efforts of the police department. We were sending officers out to Oklahoma City, Ada. We were doing some training with LPD, and the challenges we faced is we had 14 full-time officers, and some of the training wasn't really geared towards school-type issues that we dealt with every day, but yet we had to do a mandated 25 hours a year of training. So I couldn't send 14 officers to a training when it was a school day because we would have no schools protected. So we've taken that opportunity to get some of our officers CLEAT certified instructors, and we have 6 currently on staff that are certified instructors for the state of Oklahoma, that when they teach a class, they can actually, our officers get credit for that class. And the one thing that I really like about it is our officers that are CLEAT certified instructors can take a situation that we're dealing with every day in the school, build a curriculum of training with that issue, submit it to CLEAT, and what they will do is approve it for training, and then it becomes a curriculum in the CLEAT mandated training that we can teach our officers and continue their hours of training. One of the other big rocks I had was maintaining security district-wide. And that might sound simple, but it's been a challenge because we're looking at one point of entry for our district schools. We're looking at the Raptor Visitor Management System that we currently have employed in our district, and perimeter checks that we're performing every day, ID requirements by staff, just the overall maintaining of the security of the school. It's quite a challenge, especially when you only have 14 officers in your district and you have 28 locations, you have 15,000 students, 2,400 employees, and those are all rough estimates, but it poses quite a bit of a challenge. And that leads to my next big rock, which was enhancing the school, elementary school security. We always were lacking in that area, and we know that there's a need to have security in the elementary schools. Me and Dr. Deegan had brainstormed, I think, for probably the first 2 years or a year and a half, wondering how we were going to do it. State laws had passed where we could arm teachers, and we had mulled over a few ideas, and a lot of them we wasn't comfortable with. And one day we were discussing a couple of the ideas, and it just, like it fell out of the sky, the school marshal idea. What we're doing is employing 18 school marshals in our Lawton Public Schools, and we're going to place one school marshal in each elementary school. And the minimum requirement is reserve police officer certification. That's the minimum mandate for them to carry a firearm in a school and provide security for that building. So we've met challenges. We put the application out there. We were kind of optimistic at first, thinking this is a law enforcement community. It's a military community. We would have a lot of applicants applying that were CLEAT certified with law enforcement, and I guess we set our goals a little high. We found out we did have a lot of applicants. We had 52 people apply for that job, and that's outstanding. That's my observations in the past, when we've had openings in the police department, we've had 3 to 4 applicants for a job. We had 53 applicants for 18 positions. It's outstanding. The challenge we faced, again, was CLEAT certification on those 52 applicants. We were blessed with a few that were CLEAT certified that we were able to put to work. Some of our guys that had semi-retired, stayed on in the reserve, they've came back on as a school marshal and are working the school marshal program for us now. We have several applicants out of that 52 that are good quality applicants, but lack the CLEAT certification. So what we're going to do now is we are going to host our own reserve police academy. And this will be the first time that Lawton Public Schools Police Department has taken on such a challenge. And with our 6 certified instructors, it will be no challenge for us at all. We've procured a building, a site that we can do the training in. We're going to offer the training 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And our candidates that are chosen will be able to complete the course within a month and a half and be graduated and CLEAT certified reserve police officers for the state of Oklahoma. That will give us the ability to place officers in the schools where we need them, and also it gives us a chance to train those officers ourselves instead of sending them out. A lot of the training that we need geared toward our officers that on the school settings, the challenges we face every day, we'll be able to address those in that classroom setting. We have mandates by CLEAT that we have to instruct. We have a lot of leeway in there on instructions that we can provide for officers that will help them to do their jobs better as a school resource officer and to meet the challenges that we face every day. And most academies for the reserve run over a 6-month period. They go on a Tuesday and Thursday night for 3 to 4 hours a night, and they do some weekends, and it takes 6 months to get that cadet through that training. And I think it's outstanding that we're afforded the ability to do that within a month and a half because our officers are off in the summer. We're going to hold the training in the summer and be able to open it up 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Do I have any questions from the board?
Can we sell that opportunity to other districts?
Yes, ma'am. I believe Dr. Deegan will talk to you guys about a couple of opportunities that we have that we're going to address a couple other entities and talk to them about how to develop your police department and how to do what we're doing here at Lawton.
They could pay us to come.
Am I correct on that, Dr. Deegan? You mentioned something to me.
Yeah, I'm going to submit proposals for Mr. Hornbeck. He did a presentation at USSAA to superintendents. I'm going to submit a proposal to COSA and OSSBA to let other districts and administrators understand how a district police department works. And we may be able to find some connections there.
That's great.
Well, I would think districts would, really like that opportunity, like you say, to do this in the month and a half in the summer. Because
So out of those 52 applicants, do you already have some signed up for that academy, or?
Yes, ma'am, we do. Currently I have 6 school marshals that are already placed, and they're patrolling our elementary schools daily. I have 10 more that we've hired that are within the next week to 2 weeks. They will be actually placed in elementary school as well. So we will have 10 school marshals within the next 2 weeks in our elementary schools. Dr. Deegan was hoping towards 9. That would give us put 1 marshal for every 2 schools, which would be outstanding. Of course, our overall goal is a marshal for every elementary school, but we're reaching that goal quickly. So, we have any other questions? Again, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
awesome.
Chief? All right, if the board doesn't have any questions on that, we'll go to action item. Oh, no, we have Mr. Cook. Sorry, Mr. Cook.
All right.
Thank you, officers, for coming.
Thank you.
More about UVA than they ever thought they would.
That is our school marshal.
Yes, thank you, Chief.
Like those uniforms, Chief.
Well, thank you for having me tonight. My name is Trey Cook. I'm the Director of Transportation, and I want to talk a little bit about safety in our department. And when I was trying to put this together, I was looking at what do I need to show here. So I tried to put something together that would kind of give you an overview of what we do from A to Z with our transportation department. My big rocks that I have, they are, the first one I have was First Trans Infinite Campus. First Trans is our routing system. Infinite Campus is our student information system. And when we put these together, they did not talk. So the information, when we did rollovers at the first of the year, we were not getting updated information throughout. So it made it tough for us to be able to do our jobs with that. But with the help of A.J. Watson and David Irwin, they built a bridge. So now that both of these systems link and they talk and we get updated information. The reason that's such a huge thing for us is because students move, kids move, and when you're only getting information one time a year, it's tough whenever you're needing to find information pertaining to those students. The second is a thrill share, which is a communication to all school levels. Lynn Cordes and her staff did a wonderful job helping with that. We've got great reviews from it. To be able to send out notifications of late buses and time changes. It's something that we really don't ever want to do, but during the day, if things happen, we are able to give that notification to parents so they can make adjustments. We can make sure that our students are safe. And the third one, bus driver recruitment. That's one I want to talk about a little bit later on during this presentation. Just a few things to figure out what we do down here. We have 140 employees, which comes to 74 bus drivers. We provide safe, efficient transportation for 9,800 kids a day. We cover 410 routes by servicing 27 sites. We drive about 2,100 activities yearly. We put 1 million miles a year transporting students to and from school activities, and 1 out of 3 LPS students are going to get on a bus. Why are buses safe? Why are they safe? Statistically, school buses are the safest vehicles on the road. Basically, they are the most regulated vehicles in the automotive industry. School buses account for less than 1% of all traffic fatalities nationwide. Student in a car, student on a bus. The student on the bus is 70 times safer than those riding in cars to school. But how does that deal with the LPS? Where does it start? For you to be a bus driver for LPS, you're going to have a CDL, which is 25 hours of instruction at a state-regulated workshop. You have 25 hours of classwork, 2 hours of instructional driving. Once you completed that, you go through a state examiner. You will do a pre-trip and driving for a CDL certification. Once it's completed, you are considered a professional commercial driver. We also went a step further. We brought the Oklahoma Director of Transportation for the state down to look at our class a few years ago to just kind of audit it, to look at it, to review it, to make sure that there was anything that we could do to make our class better. Once they've applied, they want to become a driver, before we put them behind the wheel, they're going to have a pre-employment drug screen, a background check, and a DOT physical. After they're hired, they're going to have a minimum of 4 in-service hours training per year. Our drivers average 8 to 11 hours per year in-service training. Also, continue over the random drug testing, performance bus evacuation drills, be proficient through the LPS evaluation criteria for a bus driver. A few things, and this list is a mile long, but just a few things to point out. They're trained on loading, unloading, accident, evacuation. Also, we will have training that will be provided for the zone or GPS system and the ZPAS student tracking system that we're looking forward to implementing here shortly. Accidents. You can't put the miles a year on buses that we do and not have accidents from time to time. But LPS was given a commendation for 2017 and 18 through our district insurance company due to a decrease in at-fault accidents. Our Oklahoma State Insurance Group nominated LPS for use in safety videos due to the ongoing safety education that is provided by the district. As we talked about what we do for LPS, we also have a state accreditation. We have an REO that comes in twice a year and goes through our paperwork and audits us to make sure that we are putting safe drivers out on the road. A few things that we have: physicals, pre-employment and random drug screening, CDL licensures, bus driver certification, pre-trip inspections, annual bus inspections completed by a certified inspector, annual in-service documentation, and a motor vehicle driving record. All of those have to be kept on file. Accreditation: since 2013, we've not had any deficiencies. We've had everything in line. We've not had any problems or concerns. With over 1.8 million students transported each year and over 1 million miles on the road, you're bound to have concerns. What are the procedures for rectification, and what are some of the concerns? A few of the common concerns are missed stops, overcrowding, and speeding. Process, and that's what people always want to know. Well, what do you do when people call in? What's the procedure? Well, it's basically, we're going to take information from the call, return a call, we're going to listen to the complaint, determine bus number along with time and location of complaint, because I'll be realistic with you, 90% of the calls that we have come in, they do not have a bus number for it. So we're having to figure out what bus is in that vicinity and try to put it together. For investigate the complaint and determine validity, then all action taken is based on LPS policy DOAC, which governs support staff. As I mentioned earlier, I want to talk about big rock number 3, recruitment of qualified bus drivers. It's no surprise we have a shortage of drivers. It's not just LPS, it's nationally, and we are looking at ways to put people in the seats of those buses. We have a beautiful fleet. We have great drivers. We just do not have enough of them at this point. Some things that happen whenever we do not have the number of drivers that are needed. We have extended route times. We have delayed pickup and drop-off times, extended ride times. We have overcrowded buses. We have increased behavior issues due to overcrowding and ride times. And all of this causes stress due to the above. Okay? That's the doom and gloom. The positives are that we are putting together a GPS system. We're putting together a parental portal system and a student tracking system. This will not alleviate the concern that we need for bus drivers, but this will help to eliminate some of these concerns. This will give notification to parents. This will give students the option to be able to see where your bus is coming. If we have a change in times, they see that. This will give notification when your child gets on and off the bus. This will give us a GPS system that's able to track those to make real-time adjustments to it. So we have positives that are coming through this. Lastly, what I want you to take from this, we don't have enough bus drivers, but every bus driver LPS puts behind the wheel is certified as a professional commercial driver. LPS is proven to be safe through the sheer numbers of what we do. 1.8 million students transported annually and 1 million plus miles driven. Buses are the safest vehicles on the road by far due to being regulated at the national, state, and local levels. We are lucky enough to have our own state certified inspector on staff. Actually, we have 3 of them. We also have three police department jurisdictions are within our routes. Being on the road daily, we follow the laws and provide an equitable and safe service. The facts are, we have not received 1 speeding citation in my tenure with over 4 million miles of road time. If this isn't enough, we're implementing a GPS, a parental portal, as well as a ZPass student tracking system to add even more security for what really matters, which is the current students of LPS, which in return are the future of our Lawton community.
How many drivers do you have total?
74. We have 74 full-time drivers. We have 10 staff drivers.
Oh, what's the difference? Oh, staff drivers are teachers or something? That
They
also
do, and
drive
they
part-time?
do one. They are able to do 1 route
Okay, so a
for
typical,
an AM and PM.
a typical driver, like one of our 74, how many routes do they do a day?
Well, they're different. Most The general rule is there's going to be 3 a.m., 3 p.m.
So they do
But-
like an elementary, middle, high?
Yeah,
and then
yes,
same
ma'am.
thing in
But then you have VOTEC, and you have Bridge, and then you have Learning Tree, and you have different ones that you have to break up, and some of them can't do middle schools because they overlap in them. So,
Okay.
but the general is 3 in the a.m. and 3 in the p.m.
Our little buses don't require the CDL, right? The little activity buses?
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
I see people driving them.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. They like them. They're very nice vehicles.
They are.
All right. Any other questions?
Trey, I've got one question for you. I know because tomorrow for the Seal Facts on Fort Sill, this is going to be one of the questions that's brought up, and it's referenced the morning routes. And what I'm getting a lot from a lot of the parents on Fort Sill is the delay in the bus routes. And their big concern is we've got children out there in the weather, when the weather's severe, waiting for buses. Buses are 30, 40 minutes late. They don't have any method of notification to know when those buses are going to arrive. So what I've got is I've got a handful of mothers that are collecting up kids in the neighborhoods and finding out what schools they go to drop them off.
Sure.
So,
Well-
one of the concerns is how can they get notified if routes are running late for particular routes so that they know, so that they can pull their kids in? I know in the afternoons that's pretty much a solved solution.
Sure.
And I know you guys are moving to the GPS system, but what's that one method that they can use to notify them in the morning that they're 30, 40 minutes behind so that they can pull their kids in, or somebody can pull their kids in until, the bus arrives, or at least find alternate transportation?
Sure, great question. Well, what we have is we have a thrill share that goes out now. We do an all-call to our drivers. They will call in and give us the estimated time. If it's under this cutoff, we will send a thrill share out to that school that will, for example, it'll say Freedom Bus 621 will be experiencing delays 15 to 20 minutes. That will give notification up to those parents, and that way they can make adjustments. They will know then that they don't need to send their child out at the regular time to the bus stop because the bus is coming. Also, if it's going to be a different bus coming, we like to send them out so they'll know to expect if you're going to get a different bus than what you regularly have, because we'd like to have them to have that information also.
Okay, but there's not like an ad hoc system that the military uses that's just if parents have this little icon or app that just says, hey, bus is going to be late, it's en route, it'll be there. I know it's kind of like the GPS system, but this is for us on the installation, kind of an immediate notification of any delays or any issues that are
We do
ongoing.
not have that in place yet. That is something that our parental portal and our Zonar system that we're implementing, those are things that I think will alleviate some of those problems going forward.
So as a parent, I get text messages when my
Sure.
kid's bus is late.
Sure.
So why do I get them and they don't?
Where do you sign up for that?
Yeah.
It goes, that will go through your independent school.
Okay.
Whatever school you have, it'll go through the school sign-up system, and that's who pushes them out. Because we'll send them, but we just go off the log that they have.
Yeah, so it's the school sending them, right?
It'll be us sending them. We just use
But the school gives you
whoever's on their call list is who will get that.
Oh,
The
okay.
question is how to
So
get
they
on the
need to
call.
So
get
they
their
need to be on
school
the
to
call
turn
list of their school,
Okay,
and then they'll get text messages. I get them, so.
Sure.
Yeah.
appreciate it, thank you
Oh,
very
no
much.
problem. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
For
That's
work
good.
too because of the gate, so can you fix
Um,
that too?
Now I won't be jumping the gun a little bit, but I apologize, Mr.
And
Cook.
it's not PTSA.
Oh, okay, I keep putting PTSA. Item action 5F.
I know.
In line and similar with the tips line, we have, we've been, and Ms. Bristolera and the PTA have been working all semester, and specifically on this program since October. And so I won't steal any of her thunder. I'll introduce one of our favorite people in the district, Ms. Pam Bristolera. She's president of the PTA.
Good evening, board members. So nice to be with you tonight, to be able to talk to you a little bit about something that I'm really, really passionate about, something that I feel like is going to be a great advantage for our district. I think as parents and guardians, one of our biggest concern is for the safety of our children. And we know from the time they leave in the morning to the time they get home actually at night, we always worry about them. And we recognize that also at Lawton PTA Council this year about children and their safety. And we even adopted, as you can see by my T-shirt that I'm wearing, we adopted our theme this year to be a buddy, not a bully. So this all kind of comes under of part of being able to have safety for our kids. And so tonight, I want to introduce to you something that I feel like is going to be very advantageous for our district. And although Lawton Public Schools and the police department do an absolutely great job of ensuring their safety, I think that there is also another tool that we can add to that, and this is called the Stop It program, which I'm going to now introduce to you. So as you can see, it's an anonymous reporting and incident management. And it is, if you look kind of at the bottom, it is being proactive instead of reactive when it comes to dealing with incidents of inappropriate behavior that lead to avoidable issues. So I really like those two words, that it's proactive instead of reactive. So when we see a problem coming, we can jump on it immediately instead of waiting. It is the leading technology company, provides software and services that mitigate, defer, and control appropriate conduct. And this is just, I think, the really great thing about this. Students report instances anonymously via an app, a web, or phone hotline service. It is 100% anonymous 100% of the time. So a lot of times I feel like kids get bullied. I've seen it happen with my own children. I know you have. And they're too scared to report it because they're scared of maybe something that might happen to them because they were the ones who squealed about whatever it was. And so with this, all they would have to do is just kind of go to their phone and they could report whatever was going on to them. Some of those things that can be reported would be, these are just examples, are bullying, cyberbullying, violence, threats, hazing, weapons possession, drugs, alcohol, substance abuse, intolerance, discrimination. The list can kind of go on and on. And it is actually designed to save you time and reduce your workload, which I really like that because I think when you see this kind of a thing, you think, whoa, somebody else is going to have a lot to do and they're going to have a lot more on their desk to take care of. And I think particularly principals and counselors probably feel like, boy, this is going to hit us square right on, but actually not. So, and we're going to get into that in just a minute. So Stop It is actually in 2,900 schools. So there's 1.4 million subscribers. And this is just a little bit about how it works. The student would create an access code and then download Stop It, which is an app on their phone. They would see something and then they would submit a report, or they would get on their phones and they would let them know what's going on, submit a report, and then the reports are instantly routed to the appropriate authorities, which in this case is going to be the Lawton Public Police. Okay, so the points of contact will be police officers or school marshals, and the training has already started for this and hopefully will be effective in February. And this is kind of what will happen. They're going to receive the posters. There will be administrative training webinar, and then it'll be launched to the students, and they'll probably show like a video and provide access codes for them to be able to download it to their phones. So this is just, if what I say doesn't make a lot of sense, this is just a really fast video to show you a little bit about it.
Stop It is powerful in serving both as a deterrent and facilitating the upstander effect. The Stop It platform provides schools with powerful tools to report and manage conflict, harassment, bullying, cyberbullying, and any type of harmful and inappropriate behavior. Students are equipped with a mobile app for fast, secure, and anonymous reporting. Stop It Messenger gives you the power to follow up with the anonymous submitter of an incident and conduct a real-time, two-way anonymous conversation so you can get more information and ask questions, facilitating an effective and efficient investigation. Get ahead of incidents and mitigate risk with Documented, Stop It's incident management and reporting system. You decide who will receive and manage real-time reports from students. Time records ensure easy compliance reporting and legal protection. Utilize customizable incident attributes in order to build valuable and trackable data for your institution. Built-in reporting tools highlight problem areas, track your progress, and identify trends. And proactively address issues with our alert engine, which automatically alerts you to repeat offenders, behaviors, or other issues. Send notifications directly to students via the Stop It app, such as safety alerts, advisories, or policy reminders. Let Stop It help save you time and mitigate risk with our simple, fast, and powerful solution.
The next one. You have to hit the thing to go to the next one. So the last thing to say about this is that a lot of times people wonder if there's false reporting with this, and the percentages are 4% are false. And are there too many reports? 3 to 4 a month. So the students realize the advantage to having this on their phone, and they take it pretty seriously. And the time that's going to be spent in collecting this data is estimated at 22.05 minutes per month. So it's a great tool to introduce into the school system. So it's 100% anonymous, 100% confidential, and this is covered under the school insurance, so it's absolutely free. And that's just to train the district in how we do it, and I think it will be a great idea for the school system.
That's great.
Any
Thank
questions that I can, because Lynn is the other part of this administration that is getting the training all going, so if there's anything we can answer. No? Okay.
I'd like to move for approval.
Thank you.
Call roll, please.
Ms. Nyworth?
Yes.
Ms. Edwards?
Yes.
Dr. Bridges?
Yes.
Mr. Jester?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brissett. This would not have happened without Ms. Brissett. She investigated the program. She brought
That's awesome.
She brought it to us, worked it out with the police chief on how to report, so it wouldn't be minimal, it wouldn't be too much on the secretaries and the principals. Great.
Yeah, good, thank you.
All right. Item 5G, proposed revisions to policy DECA, Family and Medical Leave Act. If you have Ms. Ellis, if you have any questions, Ms. Ellis is here.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Call roll, please.
I'm sorry, who made the motion?
I did.
She did. Patty second.
I'll be here.
Lori made the motion, Patty second.
Ms. Nyworth?
Yes.
Ms. Edwards?
Yes.
Dr. Bridges?
Yes.
Mr. Jester?
Yes. Okay, we're on to item 6.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your patience. And we may move you to before departmental reports next time, because I didn't,
That'd be nice.
thank you. So Denise, if we move them before, so I apologize, bear with us, but thank you for coming.
Or after executive session.
Yeah, at the end of the board meeting.
Well, we thank you for having us. I'm Corey Miller with Architects in Partnership, joined tonight by Josh Jaycox and Jeff Williams of Crossing Construction. Start off with just a quick update of the projects we've got going on other than the bond. We did close out a couple since 2 weeks ago. We've got a couple others that will be closing out here shortly in the next couple days. That's the Edison re-roof and the MacArthur Middle School HVAC projects. Lawton High School windows is about 85% complete. The Carriage Hills, Tomlinson, and Lawton High re-roofs are wrapping up here shortly. They've got some other punch list items that they're finishing. The Adams re-roof is about 75% complete. The Woodland Hills, Lincoln, and Adams HVAC projects are nearly complete also. We've got a substantial completion inspection scheduled at Lincoln for tomorrow morning. The other two sites are substantially complete. The MacArthur High School cafeteria renovation, they have finished up the work on the change order 4. It's the last remaining scope we have over there. They've got city inspections on Wednesday, and we'll be there to perform our architects and engineering inspections the following week. We've got a bid opening tomorrow afternoon for the final couple bid packages for Eisenhower Middle School. The safe room projects, we were just about to start design on Whittier. Now that we've got all the budget items for the middle school coming around full circle. We've started on the food service warehouse freezer and refrigerator replacement. We've got a geotechnical engineer coming on site later this week. MacArthur High School fire alarm upgrade is in progress. We've got engineers starting their investigation there. And we've also issued drawings for pricing on the Almore West gym repair and sent permit documents over to the city for that. Y'all have any questions for me before crossing updates on the bond issue?
When's the first safe room going to be finished?
I'm sorry?
When will the first safe room be finished?
I am glad you asked that. Jeff? Any others?
Good segue.
Thank you.
I'm Jeff Williams with Crossing Construction. Good evening. So I'm the PM over the Safe Rooms project. We were hit really hard with the weather that we've had over the last few months. Again, had another 5 inches of rain right at Christmas time, and right after that a little bit of snow. So we are behind schedule on that project. We were looking at a original completion of early March. We're now mid-April on a completion date on that one. As far as schools being ready, Edison is going to be probably the first one. Edison and Almore West will be right behind Edison. We're at roughly 59% at Edison and 58% at Almore West. We'll probably mid-March be wrapping that one up where it's completely done mid-March, and Almore West all right behind it. So that's everything complete. We're looking within the next couple weeks, by the end of the week of the 20th of February, we should have quite a few of the buildings actually sealed up to where they're stormproof. So not complete finish work interior, but complete stormproof on the exterior, where they should be able to be utilized for that purpose. But right now at Almore West, we've got exterior site cleaned up and dirt spoils removed. We've got interior door frames are installed, exterior doors and the stormproof louvers are installed, and this week we've started installing the tornado storefronts. The interior framing and rough in is near complete, and the roof is on that one. We've got a little bit of trim work around the roof and obviously painting and stuff, but it's sealed. Edison, the framing and rough in is complete. The exterior doors and stormproof louvers are installed. Interior door frames are installed. Insulation and drywall, they're being installed this week. Exterior site work has begun. We've pretty well cleaned it up, and the roof is on. Again, it's sealed. Woodland Hills, we just finished cleaning up the exterior of the site. The exterior doors and the stormproof louvers are installed, and then the interior framing and the interior rough end is underway. Hugh Bish, the structure is up and the roof concrete is complete. Floor slab should be placed tomorrow. Exterior utility work will start this week. We'll finish wrapping it up this week. Crosby Park, the structure is up and roof concrete is complete. The floor slab is going to be placed Wednesday. And so structure is up at Sullivan Village and the roof concrete is complete. And the floor slab on that one should be placed next week. And then Carriage Hills, the structure is up and the roof concrete is complete. And the floor slab should be placed next week on that one as well. Again, we're looking at having the safe rooms in a position where they're stormproof by mid to late March on all those. We should have all the exteriors closed up. Any questions? Any other questions about it?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Josh J. Cox. I'm with Carlson Construction. I am one of the 2 PMs on the middle school. To give you a quick update, like Corey said, we're bidding package 4 tomorrow, which is the building demo for the existing middle school, as well as site concrete, EFIS, the landscaping, and asphalt paving. So that bid's tomorrow at 2. Right now, we have concrete going in. Kind of give you perspective. We put about 1.25 miles of concrete in the ground at 2 foot by 2 foot wide. So it kind of gives you a mental perspective. Masonry, we started block walls on the actual main gymnasium itself. So you'll start seeing us go vertical, which is always a good sight. Stormwater piping is going in the ground, as well as some HVAC piping and then necessary plumbing as well. Up in the next 30 days, you'll start seeing a crane, as well as all the steel arriving on site. You'll see us go even more vertical. So, any questions?
No. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's great to see building walls coming
Yeah.
up. It's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, we
So,
got-
but it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Steel up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions from the board? All right.
Item 7, report of superintendent.
All right, on item 7, I only have, other than, well, information item. I'm gonna present to the board, and you have before you a copy. It says, draft for board feedback, Lawton Public Schools reporting structures for staff, students, parents, and community members. I'd like to review that with you because, get some feedback. I'd like to also get this through, Lynn Cordes' staff. And then possibly, if, with the board's direction, consider getting this to SPPDC and PPDC for adoption as policy, because our policy doesn't do a good job of thoroughly outlining and noting what our reporting options are in one place. It might be helpful if we had one policy that anybody could go to and say, okay, how do we get information through, out, whatever. So I'm gonna review this with you, and I'm not gonna read it all, but I'll just kind of hit the high points. And again, it starts generally speaking, the principal is the first contact for just about anything, and if it's a department, it's the department head. But at no time does our policy prohibit staff members, for example, if you want to talk to a director and that's not working, it doesn't, staff always have the option to go to the executive director, go to the superintendent. We have an open email system. People contact me all the time. Reporting options for parents, students, and community members are very similar. We really encourage parents, and our policy actually points everybody to the principal first. But anytime, and again, I get emails from parents and students. I had 2 students last week, straight to the superintendent. I put them back to the right people. Everything worked out well for them. Got good reports back from the principals. So there's nothing stopping parents. They need to go to the point closest to the action if possible. But if they're not comfortable with that, they just need to go where they need to go. We want to make sure staff understand this. And then, so within that, we have numerous structures. First of all, that we've instituted, there's now a contact superintendent button on the website. I get 2 or 3, I'd say I get about 5 a week on average. I got 2 last night, about 2 a.m. I didn't answer them till this morning. Most of our schools have adopted the same button, contact the principal, and several of our departments have. All schools in our and departments have instituted a feedback model. We also have SPPDC, PBDC, and DEIC, which are our first official board sanctioned committees for staff and I'm assuming students. Students would be a little different, but for staff to bring concerns to the board and to get policy changed. And then, of course, parents, students, and staff members have numerous other organizations. Sometimes, however, communications are not always the best option. So tonight we had 2 options that were, meaning staff can't necessarily feel like they can go to Mr. Dees because he's so mean. He's scary, he's a big guy. And they feel like they need to go somebody else, or they feel like they need to talk to somebody and anonymously report their information. Tonight the board has approved 2. Ms. Brissolera's Stop It program, which the board, that is the student avenue, but it's not just for bullying. It can be anything a student wants to report. Staff could use it, we don't know because it's anonymous, but generally we're going to market and push that towards students. The other, of course, next is the poster that Ms. Cordes, and that's the tip line, ok.gov. That is a school-specific program by the Department of Homeland Security, and they can either click the QR code or call the number. But again, students or staff could use either one and cross them. When it's anonymous, there's no way to know that. On the back page, it do mention that school employees are required by law to report any issue relating child safety. We train all of our staff on this every year. If for example, if I'm a staff member and I don't report it, I'm liable for any problems. Or if I'm as a principal and I tell Pam, I said, no, you cannot report that. She not only can't listen to me, but then I could be prosecuted for obstructing that help for that child. Staff may anonymously report labor concerns to the Department of Labor and OSHA. It has happened in this district and it was resolved appropriately. And in cooperation with Lawton Police Department, we've had a Crime Stoppers program for our students. And I don't think we've done a good job of promoting it the last couple of years, but we need to get it back. It's the same Crime Stoppers program for the city of Lawton, but anytime somebody calls this Crime Stoppers program and it's a school issue, they give it to chief. We actually have in policy a way to reward people for those tips that students stop crimes. And then finally, the Oklahoma State Department of Education, because when people get uncomfortable, they call, so I'm going to call this Joy Hoffmeister, and they do. They immediately put that through to the regional accreditation officer. Mr. Piper is ours currently. He always keeps the source secret if he's been asked to as much as he can. but he does address it with us and report back. Sometimes he connects us to the people, but when people say, no, I do not want the superintendent to know who called, Mr. Piper says, I'm not supposed to tell you, but give me the information you can. I do want to point out that, but also on their website, I didn't print it off here, they have a very clear policy and way for anybody to create any sort of how to do report a school for just about anything. The State Department, it's on their website. It says bullying, but it's everything. And I just do want to acknowledge there is a certain limitation with anonymous complaints. We never know who, it's impossible to follow up. But when we get anonymous complaints, we ask people to include actionable information. We need a who, a what, a when, or a where. And that way we can follow up, and that way I can actually check in on things. But it does limit our ability. And then finally, it's important for people to understand that sometimes they'll bring concerns to us. I cannot, for example, talk about any staff members' personnel issues, and I can't tell parents. I get this all the time, and it's difficult. Ms. Nyworth and Ms. Jester's 2 daughters got in a fight, and the first thing they want to know, what'd you do to her? What'd you do to her daughter? What'd you do to his daughter? I can't by law tell, but kids you usually tell for you. So those are things we're limited. Any feedback from the board, first, on if anything you need to be added? Secondly, if you would like to pursue this through PPDC and SPPDC as a policy update?
I think any way that we can increase the communication is a good thing.
Well, in those committees, that needs to happen.
Okay, put them through the committees and have them reviewed. I'll have them refine them and get it to us, and we'll get it as a policy recommendation through Ms. Ellis.
That's what they're for.
All right. Any other advice? I don't want to forget. All right, thank you very much. We will get that process started. And then I have, we've had a lot of good news today. I'm going to share that to my next board meeting. Okay.
All right, that moves us to item number 8, the consent agenda. Do we have any items that need to be removed?
Move for approval.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Ms. Nyworth?
Yes.
Ms. Edwards?
Yes.
Dr. Bridges?
Yes.
Mr. Jester?
Yes. Okay, item 9 is the proposed executive session.
Which I guess we need.
I believe we need.
Yep. I move that we go into executive session.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Ms. Nyworth?
Yes.
Ms. Edwards?
Yes.
Dr. Bridges?
Yes.
Mr. Jester?
Yes.
Okay, so what are you doing to the 52nd Street?
I say give you guys 10 minutes.